Hi students, welcome to lesson number 12, Agrarian Social Structure in Rural India. Introduction. The study of agrarian social structure has been a matter of serious study in rural sociology. If we go by the dictionary meaning, agrarian pertains to land or its tenure or to a general distribution of lands and organizing or furthering agricultural interests. Agrarianism refers to a set of values which holds that agriculture is the most natural and desirable vocation and the ideal place to live. An agrarian society may be accepted as any form of society, especially traditional societies primarily based on agricultural production and associated crafts rather than industrial production. If we wish to elaborate further, we may say that an agrarian society focuses its mode of production primarily on large fields. This distinguishes it from the hunter-gatherer society which produces one of its own food, and the horticultural society which produces food in small gardens rather than fields. The main objectives of this lesson are to discuss about the concept of agrarian social structure, to discuss about the agrarian social structure in India. What is agrarian social structure? Agrarian means anything related to land, its management or distribution. Agrarian social structure will include caste, class, land ownership and 𝗳𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 system, while agrarian class structure will include only classes. Land is the central element to the agrarian social structure in India, and caste, class and land ownership are closely linked. Dominant land owning groups are usually middle or high ranked castes, and most of the marginal farmers and landless belong to the lower caste groups. 𝗂𝗽𝗍𝗂 and 𝗳𝗏𝗵𝗍𝗂 have contributed significantly to the understanding of agrarian social structure in India. 𝗵𝗍𝗪, while defining the agrarian social structure, is clearly of the view that only peasantry does not constitute it. It means something more than the study of peasant societies and cultures. All those playing a role in agrarian society form various parts of it. He further says that the study of agrarian social structure revolves around mainly two aspects. One is technological arrangements and number two is social arrangements. While the former refers to the ecological conditions and agricultural technology, the latter refers to land ownership and control, power structure, land tenure and related social dimensions. Talking about the social framework of agriculture, economic change cannot be adequately understood in isolation from the social framework within which it takes place. This is particularly true of the underdeveloped and developing countries of Asia, where economic organization has a lower degree of autonomy than in the industrial societies of the West. In such Asian societies, the economic organization is found to be more closely intermeshed with a variety of social institutions whose functions are partly economic and partly non-economic. He further emphasizes the relevance of the social framework to economic activities by elaborating that the economic activities involve the mutual interaction of individuals whose rights and obligations are socially defined. The same broad set of activities as in agriculture can be socially organized. The understanding of agrarian social structure and the social organization of agriculture, described as Social Framework of Agriculture by 𝗬𝗏, is not possible without having a sound understanding of peasantry or peasant society and its various implications and dimensions in the Indian setting. Agrarian social structure. The usual and universalistic way of describing social structure has been through institution based on birth, such as family, kinship and caste. Another way of describing it is through class. The agrarian class structure may be used to understand the power structure and class stratification in Indian rural social structure. However, both caste and class are necessary to describe the agrarian social structure in India. It also explains the power structure in rural India. In this way, when we talk of agrarian class stratification, we get a better view of rural India, which was traditionally viewed through caste stratification only. 𝗘𝘅𝗺𝗪, putting the whole issue in proper perspective, makes the incisive comment by saying that caste incorporates the element of class and class has a cultural style. Hence, the two systems cannot be easily separated even analytically. Now let us discuss about the modern agrarian class structure. Broadly speaking, the modern agrarian class structure in India evolved during the British colonial rule. It was the outcome of the land revenue system evolved and enforced by the British rule. There were three classes: number 1, landowners; number 2, tenants; number 3, agricultural laborers. Daniel Thorner, in his classical work, describes these three classes as maliks or proprietors, kisans or working peasants, mazdoor or laborers. In vernacular language, he uses the terms malik, kisan and mazdoor for these three classes respectively. The landowners or proprietors traditionally belonged to the upper caste group. They were tax gatherers and non-cultivating owners of land. Now let us discuss in detail with regard to these three social classes. The first one is malik or the rich landlords. Daniel Thorner understands that the category of proprietors or maliks refers to families whose agricultural income is derived primarily from property rights in the soil. That is to say that whatever other sources of family income may exist, such as from a profession or business, the main agricultural income is derived from a share of the produce of lands belonging to the family. Typically, this share will be realized in the form of rent. Usually, the rent will be taken in the form of money, but may be in kind or also on crop sharing basis. Instead of renting out this land, however, a proprietor may hire laborers to cultivate them for him. He may manage these hired laborers himself, or he may hire someone else as manager. He may actually go into the fields and perform some of the work alongside of his hired laborers. The main determinant should be his mode of income. If his agricultural income from that part of his holdings which he cultivates with his own hands is less than the amount he receives from renting out the rest of his lands or having them tilled by hired laborers. Within this group or class of proprietors, it is possible to separate out two subgroups. One consists of large absentee landlords who typically have holdings in more than one village. The second consists of smaller proprietors who reside personally in the village in which they own land and usually exercise some degree of management and control over its cultivation. Most of the members of this class come from the higher caste. Then second group is kisan or working peasants. The second class referred to as kisan or working peasants has also a recognized property interest in the land. They may be small landowners or tenants with varying degrees of security. By and large, their legal and customary rights will be somewhat inferior to these of the Malik in the same village. The chief distinguishing feature, however, is the amount of land held. In the case of the working peasants, the size of the holding is such that it supports only a single family, and then only if one or more members of the family perform the field labor. In fact, the produce from the land owned by the kisan may not even provide the entire income required by his family, but at least it provides a larger share than whatever funds he may receive from other agricultural sources, such as doing labor on the people's land. Kisan as defined here are those villagers who live primarily by their own labor power on their own lands. They do not employ labor except briefly in the plowing or harvest season, nor do they commonly receive rent. They come from the middle level cultivating or artisan castes, most of these being OBCs or backward castes. Third category is Mazdoor or agricultural laborers. The third agrarian class referred to as laborer or Mazdoor comprise those villagers who gain their livelihood primarily from working on other people's land. Families in this class may indeed have tenancy rights in the soil or sharecropping rights. That means this class also constitute of tenants or sharecroppers, but the holdings are so small that the income from cultivating them is so less than the earnings from wage labor. Wages may be fixed or may be in the form of a crop share. In practice, the lower ranks of sharecroppers and tenants at will are almost indistinguishable from Mazdoor, and they will tentatively be included in this category. Most of the members of this class come from the traditionally landless, deprived lower castes or scheduled castes and backward castes. As Thorner rightly points out, the maintenance of this hierarchical structure of interests in the land has required that quite a substantial proportion of the produce goes to the persons who perform no agricultural work. in the form of rent. What was left to the actual cultivator is so meager, that is, not even sufficient to meet their family needs. The power structure in the agrarian classes is largely based on exploitation and deprivation. In his landmark work, D.N. Dhanagare says that although Tharner's categories and subcategories are nearer the realities of the Indian agrarian social structure, there is still a need to readjust or regroup these categories into a broader and more comprehensive model and redesignate them by commonly used concepts and criteria in the study of peasant societies. Dhanagare's model of agrarian class structure constitute of the following social classes. Number 1, landlords. Number 2, rich peasants. Number 3, middle peasants. Number 4, poor peasants. Number 5, landless laborers. Dhanagare further opines that the social composition of these agrarian classes in terms of specific status groups like caste, religious or ethnic groups, etc., is far too complex in different regions of India to reduce into any simplistic formula. However, for a loose and broad classification, this may hold ground. For example, landlords and rich landowners, including non-cultivating urban moneylenders, landowners belong to the upper caste, such as Brahmin, Thakur or Baniya in North India. In Andhra Pradesh, the Kammas, Reddys and Raus. In Mysore, the Okkaliga and Lingayats. The Patidars in the Gujarat region, while the Kunbi, Marathas and Deshmukhs in Maharashtra could be cited as more examples of the locally dominant landowning castes. The middle and poor peasantry, mostly debt-ridden, come primarily from the traditional castes of cultivators, artisans and so on. The landless laborers belong mostly to untouchable castes, the scheduled castes. According to A.R. Desai, the post-independent Indian rural setup reveals the existence of 4 classes. They are: number 1, landowners, which constitute of 22%, number 2, tenants, 27%, third, agricultural laborers, 31%, non-agriculture is 20%. Agrarian social structure in post-independence period. The post-independence period witnessed significant change in the agrarian class structure in India. The impact of land reforms and rural development programs facilitated the emergence of new forces of change. In fact, the challenges to the feudal class structure emerged with the rise of the nationalist movement. Analyzing these changes, Yogendra Singh says that the agrarian class structure everywhere in India had a feudal character. The challenge to the feudal class structure came with the nationalist movement, when not only was a radical agrarian ideology accepted, but also national leadership also actively undertook the cause of the exploited peasantry and led Kisan movements in various parts of the country. Following independence, Therefore, land reforms were introduced in most states and a beginning was made for transformation in the agrarian class structure. Most sociological studies of the agrarian structure refer to these processes of social change. Moreover, the significant trends mentioned in such studies are: number 1, that there is a wide gap between land reform ideology projected during the freedom movement or even thereafter and the actual measures introduced for land reform. Consequently, socialist transformation in the class structure of the villages has not taken place. Number 2, this lag could partly be explained by the class character of the Indian political and administrative elite, who are resistant to the needed radical reforms. Third point is, the existing land reforms have initiated a process by which the security of tenure and economic prosperity of the rich peasantry has increased, not the condition of the small peasants, both in respect of economic level and tenurial stability has deteriorated. The feudalistic and customary type of tenancy has declined and it has been replaced by a capitalistic form of lease labor or wage labor in agrarian system. Fifth point is, a new class of rich middle stratum of peasantry system has come into being, and not all of these are from among ex-zamindars. Sixth point is, the class inequalities between the top and the bottom levels of the classes have increased rather than decreased. Seventh point, the benefits of land reforms have so far not gone so much to the agricultural workers. Eighth point is, as a result of these contradictions in the agrarian class structure, the tensions in the rural social system have increased and bound to increase further. The ninth point, the sociological process that is dominant in the current class transformation in the villages is the embourgeoisement of some and proletarianization of many social strata. 𝗳𝗙 𝗺𝗍 in his celebrated work has made very incisive comments on the trends in the agrarian class structure. Some of these are: first one is, it led to the decline of feudal and customary types of tenancies. It was replaced by a more exploitative and insecure lease arrangement. Number 2, it gave rise to a new commercial based research peasant class who were part owners and part tenants. They had resources and enterprise to carry out commercial agriculture. It led to the decline of feudal landlord class, and another class of commercial farmers emerged for whom agriculture was a business. They used the non-customary type of tenancy. Apart from the above, one of the significant feature of the agrarian society is the 𝗳𝗦𝗔𝗧 system. It has been studied by various sociologists like William Weiser, 𝗧𝗦𝗍 𝗵𝗍, 𝗹𝗶𝗄𝗺 and Singh, 𝗘𝗍𝗿𝗺, etc. The term 𝗳𝗧𝗻 refers to the patron or recipient of specialized services, and the term 𝗳𝗻𝗍 refers to the whole relationship. In fact, the 𝗳𝗻𝗍 system is a system of economic, social and ritual ties among different caste groups in a village. Under this system, some castes are patrons and others are serving castes. The serving castes offer their services to the land owning upper and intermediate caste, and in turn are paid both in cash and kind. The patron castes are the land owning dominant castes. For example, Rajput, Bhumihars, Jat in the North India, and Kamma and Kapu and Reddy in Andhra Pradesh, Okkaliga and Lingayats in Karnataka, and Patel or Patidar in Gujarat. The service castes comprise barber, carpenter, blacksmith, cobbler, weaver, etc. The 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 relations essentially operate at family level. A Rajput landowning family has its 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 rights or 𝗧𝗦𝗔 ties with one family, each from Brahmin, barber, carpenter, etc. and a family of service castes offers its services to specific families of 𝗧𝗦𝗔s. However, 𝗧𝗦𝗔 rules are enforced by caste panchayats, but 𝗧𝗦𝗔 system also possesses the elements of dominance, exploitation and conflict. Therefore, is a vast difference in exercise of power between land owning dominant patrons and poor artisans and landless laborers who serve them. The rich and powerful 𝗧𝗦𝗔s exploit and coerce the poor, that is, poor are called commons, to maintain their dominance. In fact, there is reciprocity as well as dominance in the 𝗧𝗦𝗔 system. In this lesson, we have discussed about the agrarian social structure in India and the transformations that have taken place in contemporary agrarian societies. Increased mechanization of agriculture, advanced technology and communications have all led to a shift in the pattern of social network of interaction. Increased yield due to the intervention of science and technology, improved seeds, etc., led to a situation where surplus food is generated. The attitude of the peasants towards their occupation also undergone drastic change. In the pre-capitalist or traditional societies, the peasants produced mainly for their own consumption. The work in the fields was carried out with the labor of their family. Agriculture for the peasantry was both source of livelihood as well as a way of life. But in modern times, landowners begin to look at agriculture as an enterprise. They work on their farms with modern machines and produce cash crops which fetch higher prices in the market and therefore generate more money. Profit motive becomes part of agricultural enterprise. Traditionally, agrarian societies in India were marked by a pattern of relationship called the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 system, where the different castes were interdependent on each other in terms of service. The landowners were the patrons or 𝗧𝗦𝗔s and the service providing castes were the commons, such as the caste of carpenters, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, weavers, etc. But gradually after independence, this system has declined. The two significant reasons which led to this decline were the abolition of zamindari system and the Green Revolution. The process of modernization and development initiated by the Indian state during the post-independence period weakened the traditional social structure of Indian society. But caste continued to be an important social institution in the contemporary Indian society. The agrarian class structure is still the same, but it is not defined by caste anymore as it traditionally used to be. The landless members of lower castes now work with the cultivating farmers as agricultural laborers.